The thunder rolled in before the sky even changed. The air buzzed with a static charge that clung to the skin. Thomas had felt storms before, real ones, loud and violent. But this was different. This storm didn't roar. It whispered. He had only planned to spend a weekend alone, tucked away in the old family cabin deep in the pines of Grayfield. The kind of place where the trees swallowed radio signals and the night sky felt endless. But the storm arrived on the first night, and with it, everything changed. It started small. The clock froze at 2:14 a.m., not ticking, not dead, just paused. Then the light bulbs hummed a low tone like a distant choir. Thomas blamed the weather, but deep down he knew it wasn't just that. On the second night, something knocked at the door. Not a hand, not a fist, a knock like a pulse. 3 soft thuds spaced perfectly apart. He opened the door. No one, only the storm. Lightning illuminated a figure at the tree line, just far enough that Thomas couldn't make out details. The figure didn't move. He shut the door, locked it. Then the lights died, not all at once. Each bulb faded like a dying breath. He lit a candle, and in its glow, the cabin felt unfamiliar. The wood walls no longer seemed old. They seemed ancient, like they'd always been here, watching. He found a notebook under the floorboards that night. It hadn't been there before. On its cover, the word Thunderbolts was etched in deep, angry cuts. Inside, pages and pages of handwritten notes, diagrams, and a recurring sentence that made his spine tighten. The lightning doesn't strike, it remembers. That's when the dreams began. Each night he woke screaming, soaked in sweat. In the dreams, he stood inside a lighthouse, only it wasn't by the sea. It stood in the middle of a forest, its light spinning slowly, even though there was no power. And beneath it, buried deep underground, something pulsed. Not like a machine, like a heart. By the third day, the forest outside no longer looked the same. Trees had shifted. Paths he walked as a child now led to sheer drops or impossible spirals. Birds didn't sing. The only sound was the occasional rumble in the clouds, even though no lightning ever came. He tried to leave. The car wouldn't start, not even a click. The road out twisted back on itself. Every path curved inward, back toward the cabin, back toward the storm. That night, the figure was closer, no longer at the tree line, now halfway to the porch, still unmoving, still watching. Thomas tried to sleep with the candle burning, but he woke up in darkness, and the candle was gone. In its place, a small radio, old and rusted, sitting at the foot of his bed. It clicked on by itself. A voice spoke, slow and deliberate. "Return to the lighthouse. You left something behind." He wanted to throw it, smash it, but instead, he listened, because somehow he knew. There had never been a dream, only memory. He woke the next morning to silence, not peaceful silence, the kind that presses against your ears, where the absence of sound feels louder than noise. The figure outside was gone. The cabin no longer creaked. The wind no longer blew. Even the rain had stopped mid-drop, suspended in the air like beads of glass. Thomas moved through it, pushing droplets aside with his fingers as he stepped out. The forest beyond swayed, though nothing touched it, branches curling inwards like beckoning fingers. He followed a path that hadn't been there before, mudless, perfect, carved like something had walked it over and over for years, yet the leaves remained untouched. After a mile, he saw it, the lighthouse. It stood impossibly tall, in the center of the forest where no sea had ever existed. Its beam rotated slowly, though there was no source of power. Stone darkened with age, windows black, door slightly ajar. He hesitated, then stepped inside. Dust filled the air like breath. Machines buzzed, old monitors flickered with static. A spiral staircase curved upward, disappearing into shadow. He climbed. At the top, the lens rotated, a great eye scanning a shore that wasn't there. The room was filled with books, notes, and a chair bolted to the floor. It faced a wall of screens, some showing his cabin, others, himself. From angles he didn't recognize. He sat. As he did, the room responded. The monitors lit up. each one now showing different versions of the same moment, himself entering the lighthouse over and over. Some versions hesitated, some never entered, some opened the door and were immediately struck by a bolt of lightning that didn't exist in the real sky. Then, the screen went dark. A message appeared. Synchronization in progress. Prepare for reset. The chair vibrated, straps coiled up from the floor, wrapping around his wrists. He screamed, but no sound left his mouth. The lens above glowed blinding white, and suddenly, he remembered everything. Every time he had come here, every version of himself, every failure. He had never left, not once. He was part of the storm, and the storm was alive. Darkness didn't feel like the absence of light. It felt like being buried. For a moment, Thomas thought he had gone blind. Then, slowly, the darkness shifted. It wasn't gone. It was moving, breathing. The air inside the lighthouse turned warm and humid, like something was alive in the walls. The monitors flickered back to life, but now they showed different images. Not of him, but of others. Dozens of others. People sitting in the same chair. People with blank eyes, mouths open as if screaming, but no sound. Lightning crawled across their skin like veins. The voice returned, but this time it wasn't alone. Multiple voices spoke at once, overlapping, repeating the same phrase. You are the signal. You are the storm. Thomas tried to stand, but the chair had changed. Wires slithered like snakes around his wrists. A metallic helmet descended from the ceiling, shaped like the lighthouse lens, cracked and humming with static. He struggled, but a sharp pain shot through his skull. Memories he didn't recognize flashed in his mind. Places he'd never been, faces he didn't know, weather maps from decades before his birth. Then one image stayed. The well in the woods. But this time, something climbed out of it. He screamed. The chair released him. Thomas collapsed to the ground, breathless, shaking. The monitors were blank. The voice was gone. The lens above him had gone dim. But he knew the experience wasn't over. It had only shown him what was beginning. Outside the lighthouse, the sea was rising. Water churned unnaturally, spiraling toward the cliffs like a reversed whirlpool. The forest behind him flickered, trees vanishing and reappearing, like bad reception on an old TV. He stumbled down the stairs. As he reached the bottom, he saw someone standing at the door. It was him, not a reflection, not a hallucination, a perfect copy, same clothes, same expression. Only the eyes were wrong, hollow. The copy smiled and whispered, "One of us must return." Thomas ran past it, out into the rain which now fell in reverse, droplets rising from the ground to the clouds. The laws of nature were unraveling. He remembered the tapes in the cabin. There must be more. Answers, instructions, something. He sprinted back through the forest, the compass now glowing steadily. The trees screamed, not creaked, screamed. When he reached the cabin, it was different, cleaner, lit from within. Inside, the study was gone, replaced by a modern lab. Computers hummed. Screens displayed data streams that updated faster than he could read. And a woman stood there typing. She turned. "Thomas, you're early. You're not supposed to wake up yet." He stared. "What do you mean, wake up?" She frowned. "You're still inside. The storm hasn't released you. But if you're conscious, that means it's started listening. That's dangerous." He approached the desk. "What is this place?" "A simulation, a test. We run it every time the storm chooses someone. You're not the first. What happens if I fail?" She didn't answer. Instead, she handed him a device, a small handheld radio, glowing blue. "Find the signal source. End it, or let it consume you." As she spoke, her face cracked, not skin, but pixels. Her body glitched. The room shook, and then she was gone. The house was empty again, dark, silent. But in his hand, the radio buzzed. A voice emerged, faint but growing clearer. "Thomas, it's time." The voice in the radio pulsed like a heartbeat. "Thomas, it's time." He didn't know who the voice belonged to. It sounded like him, but distorted, layered with static and echoes, as if it came from a future version of himself. The radio glowed brighter, casting cold blue light across the cabin walls, which now rippled like the surface of a disturbed lake. Thomas stepped outside. The sky had fractured, clouds hanging like broken shards, lightning frozen mid-strike in the air. The world was silent, eerily still, as if sound itself had been suspended. Only the buzz of the radio remained, guiding him. He followed it. The forest, now unfamiliar, had rearranged itself. Paths no longer led where they once did. Trees shifted as he passed them, subtly turning, as if watching him. The air carried no wind, yet the branches swayed gently, to a rhythm he could not hear. The compass no longer spun. It pointed firmly, unwavering, toward a place that didn't exist on any map, the center of the storm. With each step, the static grew louder, and beneath it, another sound began to rise, a low hum, harmonic, almost melodic. It came not from the world around him, but from inside his skull. He tried to focus. Memories began to surface, but they weren't his. A man staring into a telescope in 1963. A woman in a control room, tears on her cheeks, whispering, "Not again." A child drawing a spiral in the dirt with a finger, over and over. The storm was not weather. It was memory. It was recursion. Finally, he reached the well. It stood exactly as he remembered it, but larger now, impossibly large. The stones that formed its mouth pulsed with light. Lightning crackled inside its depths, but there was no rain, no sound. The radio trembled in his hand. He leaned over the edge. There was no bottom, only reflection, but not his. 1,000 versions of himself stared back, each slightly different. Some older, some younger, some missing eyes. One smiled. The voice returned, not from the radio now, but from everywhere. "We are thunder. We are memory. We are returned." The well exploded in light. When he opened his eyes, he was standing on a highway. Cars passed, oblivious. The sky was blue. Sunlight warmed his skin. He looked down. His clothes were different. Clean. Modern. A billboard loomed above him. It read, "Thank you for participating in Project Thunderbolt. You may now resume your reality." He staggered backwards. Pedestrians ignored him. The world functioned. But he knew better. He reached into his pocket. The radio was gone. Instead, he found a small key, the kind used for old locks. On instinct, he turned toward the alley across the street. At the end of it, a red door stood in a brick wall. No handle, just a lock. He crossed the street, heart pounding. As he slipped the key in, time stuttered. The street paused. A car froze mid-turn. A bird hung suspended mid-flap. He unlocked the door. Inside, darkness, familiar, heavy. He stepped in. The door shut behind him, and he was back in the lighthouse. No storm outside, just calm waves. The monitors were off. The lens no longer spun. He looked down. The chair waited. Wires coiled like resting serpents, and beside it the radio, now black, lifeless. A note rested on the seat. It read, "Restart required." He turned. Behind him stood the woman again, but now she was fully real. No glitches, no distortion. Her eyes were sad. "Why me?" he asked. "Because you answered." "Answered what?" She handed him a slip of paper. On it, a single sentence. "Have you ever heard lightning speak your name?" He stared at the words until they blurred. The lighthouse shuddered, the windows shattered inward. And once again, everything went dark. But just before the void swallowed him, one final thought surfaced. Not his own, but one implanted, like a whisper from within. The storm never ends, it only resets.